morning, everybody. I'm going to go through what's going on in Ireland at the moment in adult literacy and in tutor training. The presentation is quite detailed, so I will be going over slides, but the information will be there for you later to have a look at. So, firstly, just to give you an idea about adult literacy in Ireland, I'm going to go through a brief background about NALA, talk about the institutions that are delivering literacy tuition, and then look at the available training. So NALA is an independent, member-based organisation. It's committed to making sure that adults with literacy and numeracy difficulties can fully take part in society and can access learning opportunities that meet their needs. Our vision is that we want Ireland to be a place where adult literacy is a valued right and where everyone can both develop their literacy and also take part more fully in society. Probably similar to what everybody else would be looking for. So just a very big picture of what goes on in Ireland.
Very simple picture.
And what I'm saying to you is, this is the little bit we're looking at, okay? This adult literacy part there. So I'm going to flick quickly over it. Okay, so adult literacy tuition is primarily delivered in our education training boards. Any of you who are familiar with Ireland will know previously that we spoke about vocational education committees. Because of our changed economic situation, there's been a lot of amalgamation of agencies. The VECs were 33, and we are now down to 16 education training boards. In 2012, I have complete figures for 2012, we had just short of 55,000 adults attending basic literacy tuition in Ireland. We have more men we have more ladies than men going into the educational training board settings. We also have literacy delivered in other areas, like in our local partnerships, in our prisons, our community development areas. Different settings like that do provide literacy, and we always encourage them to come to the educational training boards to get advice and maybe to get trainers to go in and do it. So rather than somebody just saying, oh, it's a good idea to do this, we want it to come through a structure. Literacy tuition is also delivered by the NALA Distance Learning Service. A number of years ago, there wasn't really much engagement from the ETBs with digital advancements. So NALA started a pilot project around distance learning. And in NALA we're still working on it, and that's in fact the area that I work on. So we have this is one other area where literacy is delivered. We would have about 600 learners in 1 year, so you can see it's quite small. And in 2012, 609, but very interestingly, we're the opposite on numbers. We have more men coming to the distance learning service than women, which is very interesting.
Where is the 20% that is?
Oh, I beg your pardon, it's technical. I'll fix that. 60% female, 40% male.
Right.
Okay. I don't know how many times I've gone through that. Basically, if you look at the tutor structuring, you've got your paid adult literacy tutors, you've volunteer tutors, and you've the NALA distance learning tutors. In addition to this, then, we've our subject teachers and our workplace specific trainers in an industry areas. So that's kind of the way we divide it out. When you actually look at breaking them down here, you've got the put through there, just the same listing, just different visual there. So in 2005, up to that point, all of the tutors in literacy came through the volunteer system. If you were a volunteer, you joined an ETB, you did a training course, 20, 30 hours, you had optional accreditation, and then you moved on to do paid work. So in 1998, I would have started as a volunteer. By 2000, I did my course, obviously. By 2000, I was working with groups and getting paid. And then soon after that, I became involved in the management and the running of the courses. So my background going into volunteering, I had a degree, yes, but I was working in corporate lending. Nothing to do with literacy. I had no teaching background. The adult literacy tutoring qualification comes through the Waterford Institute of Technology, which would be a big area that we do formal training. We've some continuing professional education is offered by the educational training boards. Up to about 2005, NALA delivered a lot of training, but at that point the educational training boards said that they wanted to do it. They didn't want NALA doing it. So at that point NALA offered conferences, and we would do a number in the year, but it was not training, it was a conference. A regular tutor would be contracted for about 20 hours a week. They've no kind of particular contract. We don't have a permanent position of a literacy tutor. It's contract hours is what you get. And in 2012, we had 1,350 tutors who were being paid. Now recently, it's become, and this was flagged, literacy tutors, paid literacy tutors, must be members of the Teaching Council of Ireland. Tutors were given a number of years warning that the system was changing, and a volunteer who may not have had a formal qualification could work towards that qualification. And part of it was that they would become a member of the Teaching Council of Ireland. Primary schools and secondary schools, all those teachers must have this membership, and now adult literacy tutors must have it as well. So, the volunteer adult literacy tutor, they get 20 hours of training, which I mentioned I had done. If you're at that point, you're not guaranteed you will always work with the learning. You've got to prove your suitability. There's some training provided to volunteers by the ETBs, but to be, again, when things are being filmed, it's difficult, but not much is happening, unfortunately. But in 2012, we had 2,735 volunteers, so much more work, much more volunteers numbers than paid tutors. So I think that's not as common in many other European countries that we'd have so many volunteers. So the volunteers would mostly do one-to-one tuition, okay? If you do groups, you're being paid. That's the differentiation, but we have a high degree of volunteers. Then if I come to the distance learning service, I've talked about volunteers and paid tutors. Volunteers and paid. And now part of the paid tutors are the NALA distance learning service. Quite a unique service. We would work with adults over the phone or online. There are 12 tutors delivering individual learning programs over the phone. When we recruited these tutors, they needed a minimum of 5 years experience in adult literacy tuition, and we also requested that they had the Waterford Institute of Technology qualification, and I'll be going into detail on that later. These tutors get annual contracts of up to 5 hours a week. We in NALA provide 2 days of training per year for this group. It's non-accredited training, and that's one of my big interests in coming along here at this time, because it's something I'm looking into, whether we can offer them accredited training. As coordinator, they would get weekly emails from me, and there would be a training element in that. I would send them certain links that I'd like them to read, like them to watch, and I would also send them links of papers and research papers that I would like them to read to enhance their own knowledge around literacy tuition. In 2012, as I said, we've had 609 learners in the service. If we move on then to subject teachers, these are teachers who would deliver vocational training in such areas as horticulture, as maths, retail, childcare. NALA has been working very, very heavily with this group over 12 years on integrating literacy into this further education and training. We work to support the providers to actually build literacy into the tuition that they're delivering. In collaboration with the National University of Ireland in Maynooth, a level 7 qualification has been created around integration of literacy into this area. In fact, this course has been accepted, and the tuition, they're very happy about it. So much so that the managers in this area of vocational training, the managers in these settings have now requested that a similar course be put in place for them, and this is going to start within the next few months. So, you know, the evidence from the research has kind of proven where the benefits of doing it, and now the managers want to get in on the act as well, and they want their own course.
A question. Level 7 is the Irish
That's
level,
the Irish level 7.
which
Which
belongs,
is the EQF
oh,
level
sorry,
7.
you had it. Sorry.
Yes, yeah, I've actually, yeah.
Yeah.
So, then NALA has developed guidelines for these trainers. In addition to the course, we have guidelines for the trainers who are working on this and getting them to include literacy and numeracy. In fact, we are very, very quickly tell you about a woodwork teacher who got fed up that his learners weren't measuring properly. So he used to cut the wood for them in advance and then they did their work. And it wasn't until he did this that he realised, oh gosh, how bad is that? So, people do their best in their jobs, and it is about giving the training and working with them to improve what they're doing. So, a lot of these workplace trainers in the workplace, they would be working with, say, the Safe Pass, or the Safe Pass, for instance, is a qualification you must have if you're going to work in construction or if you're going to work on a building site, anything like that. Even the council workers must have Safe Pass. So a lot of these workplace trainers that's the area that they're interested in. They're not interested in the literacy needs of the people who are participating. So NALA has developed guidelines for these trainers to actually, work with both the literacy and the numeracy and the content of their courses. The course training is really core to the program, so they're not going to be worried about it, but we're trying to improve their attitude towards it. A lot of these people doing, say, the Safe Pass, the childcare, the healthcare, these are people who have been in jobs and now qualification is required. A lot of them might not have the skills, and what happened previously to us getting involved was the candidates might have failed or moved job, or they were deferred. So people were being excluded because of their literacy, whereas now we're able to work with people to a greater degree in the workplace. So if I just go back to the workplace, just to quickly review, we've the volunteer tutors, paid tutors, the vocational teachers, and the workplace trainers. We call literacy tutors, we don't call them literacy teachers in Ireland, it's tutors. So just our framework very quickly goes to 1 to 10, you can have a look at that. Slightly different to the European qualifications framework, where you've got one level there, and our 7 and 8 are the same as your 6. So you can have a look through that yourself in detail. So what's the available accredited training? We've Waterford, as I mentioned to you, which is at level 6, level 7 and 8, and we've the National University of Ireland, which is at level 7. So the Waterford Institute of Technology, in 1997, NALA developed a program with Waterford to address the situation of a lot of people were volunteer tutors. They were trained, they had a lot of experience, but they did not have a formal qualification in adult learning. A lot of them did not have a formal qualification in teaching. And in fact, some didn't have a primary degree. A big percentage did, but I think that's just the nature, when people enjoy reading and writing and want to share it with other people. But there was a kind of a gap, a deficit in what was available. So going back to 1997, NALA worked with the Waterford Institute of Technology to design a specific program that was aimed at both adult literacy organisers who manage centres and adult literacy tutors. It's a 3rd level program. It was developed in collaboration with other national stakeholders, and it was designed very much with a bottom-up approach, where the curriculum was worked around the needs of the learners. There are a number of courses available now in the Waterford Institute of Technology: a certificate in adult literacy studies, a level 6, special purpose award for people who maybe don't have a degree and want to get started on that ladder. There's a short study skill and recognition of prior learning, again special purpose to fit in, to bring some people into the system. We have a higher certificate in adult literacy development at level 6. We have a BA ordinary at level 7, and then we have our level 8 BA honours. So, and that has this teaching council recognition, which is really important. So, the programmes are delivered on a national basis at a number of centres around Ireland. All programmes are modular in nature, and they're designed to be flexible, like Liz mentioned today, to suit the working person. And we do now, when I did my WIT course back in early 2000s, we didn't, but now there's blended learning and there's a use of an e-portfolio. So, let alone are we saying you must use technology with your learners, people are doing it and they are experiencing it themselves. More than we're doing here today. In addition to to what's available, a system of recognised prior learning. I think we validated prior learning was mentioned today. Basically, where you can advance your programme. I myself went straight in at the level 6 because I had my primary degree and I was able to argue that I didn't need to do the level 6, that I could go straight on in. You can get exemptions quite, I won't say quite easily, but exemptions are available. You must really show your case to get it done. I've given details here of the level 6. I think for time-wise, I won't go into it. I've gone through what's available there. And I've got a little bit, so you can read those later. The follow-on study would be the level 7. But what I'm interested in just going through in detail, I think, is our BA Honours in Teaching in Further and Adult Education. This is level 8 and it has this Teaching Council recognition. This programme is offered on a part-time basis and it's specifically designed to meet the needs of practitioners working in further ed and adult education settings. The programme design includes modules founded on developing practical teaching skills, coupled with modules that engage with core theory and involve active learner using a range of teaching and learning methodologies. It's active learning. The entry requirements, and this is quite interesting. You must have your level 6 or your level 7 from which, or you can get in with recognition of prior learning if you have something else of value. You must do teaching practice in a further education, or adult education setting that's working with a nationally accredited programme at levels 1 to 6. It must be a group and you must have 6 learners. So if you're working in a one-to-one situation, you wouldn't be able to do this. So you must have proved yourself in the one-to-one to be able to work in groups to get a referral onto this. You must have 3 years professional experience in the area as well. So you can't just decide, I fancy doing that course. You must have proven experience and be supported by your education training board to do it. Interestingly, the applicants must also provide evidence that they've completed 30 hours of observation in a further education setting. Quite interesting from this morning as well. So how that's worked is you have peer observations. So people pair up or they go in 3s or 4s and they do observation that way. So it's quite interesting, and I think it was you were mentioning yesterday about the value of peer assessment. So that's quite an interesting part. I wasn't involved when I did it, that wasn't part of the course. Applicants must also have access to a recognised educational institution to carry out teaching practice of 120 hours, which is quite a lot of teaching practice required. And then when you have this degree, you have an opportunity to work in further education and adult education as an adult education organiser, a tutor, further education and resource, say development, coordination rules, that type of position. So what's in this course? What have they decided you need to do? So number 1 is pedagogy, introduction, teaching practice, critical education studies, psychology of adult learning. Again, more pedagogy in semester 2. Quality, curriculum planning, assessment planning. I mean, you know, this is the nuts and bolts, what we all need to know. Equality and social inclusion, teaching practice, again into pedagogy again and teaching practice. So it's very much based in what's needed to know, what you need to do, you know, the practical aspects of running a class, of developing people's skills with them, working in coordination, working in conjunction with the learner. Interestingly, 2,000 people have completed modules. So you can decide to just opt in and out to do modules. So over the years, while I completed my award with them, I've gone back and done individual ones that weren't available when I was on the programme. So that's 2,000 people have completed that. So while I would have 10 or 12 of them done, I'm one person, so 2,000 people there. So it's about participants, not modules. And in fact, the project now has over 500 graduates. You know, with over 1,000 paid tutors, half of them now have this qualification. And unfortunately, for those who didn't spend the time over the past, say, 5 or 6 years, upskilling, they are now finding themselves in a position where they're not being paid and they aren't getting work because, you know, the time has come and the cut-off has come, which is a pity because a lot of people would have huge experience. But there is a reality and standards have been set. They were given time. So then, moving on, so that's what's available in WIT, and that's specifically for literacy tutors. Moving on to our National University of Ireland, this is the course that's available for the vocational tutors and workplace tutors if they choose. It's integrating literacy. Nala is so passionate about this area. We have a person dedicated to it. They've been working on it for a number of years. As I said, we're doing this new course in 2014, which is for managers. It's going to be at level 7. It's 6 days. It's purely being delivered because of the evidence that has come from delivering the other course, which I talked about, which was for the trainers. The feedback has been so positive. The impact it has had on the service and the learning have proven so good that the managers are saying, we want to do this, we want to be involved in it. It is delivered in Maynooth in a face-to-face setting. There's one place it's being delivered and all of the work is face-to-face, which is something that Maynooth is now looking into. As a university, Maynooth would use a lot of blended learning, but they haven't in this course. We are going to start having it used now. A number of I spoke about the educational training boards. Some of those educational training boards who would provide vocational teaching brought in this course from Maynooth, and they actually asked Maynooth to come to their training board to deliver it. So 4 of our 16 have done that. Low enough. And it's, you know, it's a well-recognised course that has changed over the years. The integrating literacy course, that's the level 6 one that I spoke about for the workplace trainers, people who are working in the workplace. I'll just go through it quickly. Now, for you, if you're a workplace trainer, and again, this came up in our conversations this morning, these may be people who, over the years, have a skill, maybe in woodwork, but they don't have formal teaching, but they got in and started teaching a number of years ago, so they're now within the system. So to do this course, you don't actually need a formal academic qualification. You can apply through your provider, but you must go through the provider. It's not something that you can just decide, oh, I fancy that night course or that day course. So really, what they work on is around skills development, lesson planning, talking about reading, writing, spelling, numeracy, what you're saying, Graciela, how you teach somebody, the different approaches. You try one thing, it doesn't work, you try something else, there's no one approach. Using materials, again, integrating the woodwork, you know, teacher astounded us that he wasn't doing maths, which is key to woodwork. So how you would integrate that into the daily classes. We also would cover multiple intelligence and specific learning difficulties so that people have a greater understanding of how to deal with somebody when they're not picking it up the first time. And very importantly, working with groups and team building and that type of dynamic. There's a number of non-accredited courses which will be available from the Education Training Board. These would be available to paid tutors and volunteer tutors. Basically, they're delivered locally, and what's delivered depends on the person who's in the job. So it's the local initiative, whether you've got somebody who's saying, yes, I'm going to deliver 5 parts of training this year, 5 elements, or you've somebody saying, oh, I couldn't be bothered doing any. That's really where you're at. So it is dependent on that local initiative. On the positive side, being based locally, it does respond to the need. And in addition to the non-accredited courses by the educational training boards, NALA will often offer courses as well. As I said, I'm involved in the distance learning service, and part of that is a website called writeon.ie, which was developed a number of years ago, where you can achieve accreditation at level 2 and level 3, which would be the basic skills level. We set up this website ideally for people who were working independently and weren't engaging with the education training boards. However, it became very clear to us the tutors in the education boards were using our system, but they weren't using it to the standard we had set, and we also found that there was a lack of knowledge around module descriptors, basic things as, you know, hitting a specific learning outcome a number of times, seeing if your learner is assessment ready, doing a pre-assessment and then doing your assessment. That process wasn't very well understood by some other people. So we in NALA went out to deliver training on righton.ie, and that was part of the training. So that is non-accredited half-day training that's available to both volunteers and paid tutors. In addition to that, NALA provides, I mentioned before that the education training boards took the role of training from NALA, but we still provided events for tutors, but they weren't training. So we've had events for literacy tutors, organisers. We did a numeracy conference, ESOL conference and family literacy conference, and there were 500 people at that. Now, one of the big developments recently with the with the education training boards is NALA, in conjunction, NALA is talking to the representative body for the education training boards, and it's looking like NALA will begin to offer much more training again. Back to where we were before, NALA will offer it nationally, and depending on what the training is, we either train trainers to go out and do it, or we would have, you know, one person who's skilled in the area would go around. We'll also be looking at different ways of delivering this, and you can be sure there will be an online aspect to that training. But we haven't got to that point yet. It is now in negotiation still. Have I got time to tell you about our distance learning? Okay, very quickly then, Robin.
Yeah.
I'll ask for forgiveness, not permission. NALA offered the distance learning service in response to the demand. Are we way off?
Yes. Yeah, go on.
Okay. And we offer half-day training. This is what I was talking about. We offer 12 minor awards at level 2, 14 at level 3, and 3 at level 4, but level 4 is not accredited. We've had various iterations of our distance learning service, and at the moment, I suppose I came in at this point when we did a TV series called Written Off, and we were looking at accrediting the learners for what they had done on this TV programme, and this is where the online part came in, and then other educational training boards began to work with us. So this would have been round 1. We've just completed round 16, so we've done an awful lot since then. There's a lot of tutors using it nationally, as I mentioned to you, and at the moment we've nearly 35,000 people registered, and we've offered these numbers of awards. So total individuals, 2,500 have got awards, which is very good. So what are the challenges? This is kind of what I'm thinking here for us in Ireland. The big challenge is we don't have a post of literacy tutor. So we might have everything that I spoken about in training in place. It's very positive, but we actually don't have a post. It's contracts. What also has happened is with our changed economic environment and the amalgamation of ECs, people who do not have literacy training, they might be teachers, are now being redeployed in other areas. And some of them are coming to literacy.
What do you mean by post? I don't understand the word.
Sorry?
The function.
Function.
It's not recognized as a teacher function.
It's, you know, a contract.
Okay. Okay.
They haven't
Yeah.
a formal job. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you were talking about it being, a job here. If somebody, we don't have that. So that's something that we do need to do. And the supports are in place. We have our accreditation, we have what you need, we have a bank of staff available, we've continuing professional developments, including what NALA will offer. But yet we don't have the job. So, there's hope there. We have things if we need to. The other issues that we have, and I think it's similar with what I've been hearing over yesterday and today, ICT skills. We have tutors who do not want to engage in ICT themselves. They just won't do it. Integrating literacy, we need to get that worked more within the system. Blended learning and instructional design. It became quite evident to us that some of the teachers did not understand about how you write up proper assessments, how you integrate them, how you look at the specific learning outcomes, and rather than do an assessment for each outcome, you integrate them. You do one assessment, covers 5 outcomes. some tutors weren't very good on that. Some very good tutors, in fact, weren't very good on that, but they were very good at tutoring. So that's an issue that we want to work on. And math skills, from this morning, you don't have people looking for it. The tutors that I work with in the distance learning service, I have about 4 who are very good on maths and who love maths. Those 4 all have come from industry, volunteered, and are now working more. They're the ones who are interested in maths. The other tutors who came up from the volunteer system, like myself, don't want to tutor maths. They work away with the learner and then they change them over. So maths is an area that we just have to do more tutoring on. So I hope from today that you have an idea about what goes on in Ireland. It's quite piecemeal, there's an awful lot to it. You have an idea about the institutions that are delivering tuition, which is primarily the educational training boards would be our main one, the ETBs. And then the training is Waterford and Maynooth. Waterford specifically for literacy tutors and organisers. Maynooth for the teachers who might not have experience in literacy but are working in certain areas. Then the educational boards to a certain amount, and then NALA ourselves to a certain amount of training. Okay?
Thank you.
I think
Thank
that's
you very
clear.
much. We did go.